Hi, it's Laura.Marine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. In this video, I am doing a VR to my TarotTube friend James Feeney and his tag Sentimental Tarot Decks, which I've been a little bit loose with the definition and gone with Sentimental Tarot Decks and also an oracle at the end. So as the name of the tag suggests, this tag is about sharing decks in our collection that have sentimental or emotional value that we cherish for perhaps nostalgic reasons that, may not be our favorites in our collection, that may not be the ones we read with the most, but are very special and meaningful to us. So I decided to do a VR. I have a bit of a tag backlog. I'm pretty late on this one, I think. I have been very busy, of course, with the end of semester time, all the grading. Anybody who works in education, you know how busy this time of year is. So I do have some tags that I'll be doing rather late VRs too, and this is one of those. So I have 4 tarots and 1 oracle to share with you that for me are sentimental decks. The first you have seen me talk about a couple of times before, and that is the Jonathan D. Tarot Pack. And this deck is sentimental to me because it's the first deck I ever had. This deck was gifted to me by my family. My mom and probably my grandma had something to do with it, I suspect. And this would have been back in maybe 2002, going quite a ways back. And this is the only deck I had for quite a number of years. And, for folks who haven't seen this deck, it's a very strange combination of some minors that are quite pippish, some are Marseille inspired, others have a more scenic background and nods to Smith Waite. It's color-coded in the minors. It's an unusual deck, certainly, and the cardstock is horrifying. But when I received this deck, I had no idea that, cardstock could be any different. And I cherished this deck, and I read for myself and family members, and I was so happy not that long ago, a couple of years ago now, to find it in the back of a closet at my parents' house and to be able to put it into my collection that I have now as an adult. So this one, as a first deck, of course, has tremendous sentimental value for me. It will always be in my collection, even though it's not one that I read with very often these days. So that's the Jonathan D. Tarot Pack. The second deck that I have that is a sentimental deck for me is the Nomad Tarot by Jennifer Drantel. This is not one that I see around too often on Tarot YouTube, but this deck is sentimental to me because this is the first indie deck that I ever owned, that I ever bought. I thought it was actually a different deck. I thought the first indie deck I got was Heart and Hands, but that one was actually second. This one was first. I now have a spreadsheet of all of the decks that I've ever owned. I blame Kim at Abundant Life Tarot for that. But I've included a column for date, so now I actually know this was the first indie deck I ever got. And I got it in 2016. And I bought it having no clue what to do with it, no idea how to read a pip deck. I just saw it, and the very dark navy and white color palette really spoke to me. It has a lot of features that I look for in a deck now, in that it is elemental, it's nature-based. I do like a kind of black and white style color scheme, and it just, something about it just really called out to me when I saw it. And so I got it from Little Red Tarot. And so this is the deck that first opened up the idea of reading with pips for me. I struggled along, admittedly, and it's also the deck that opened up the wonderful world of independently printed tarot and oracle decks, a world that I now, of course, love very much. So, the Nomad Tarot by Jennifer Drantel, also definitely a sentimental deck. The third deck is, I think, the first deck that I had that I felt like I could relate to and that I could see myself represented in, and that felt really like a deck that felt like home in terms of its representation. And that deck is the Thea's Tarot by Ruth West, and this is a vintage deck. It's produced in the 1980s, and it is a feminist deck. It is a queer deck, and recently Kathu Tarot, in her VR to the one deck for each signs tag, she talked about this deck as a ancestor deck, and I really feel that as well, in terms of the lineage of to us LGBTQ plus and feminist tarot readers and enthusiasts. This is an ancestor deck, and I was so excited when I came across it. For quite a time when I first got it, this was the deck that I did larger readings with. It was the deck I went to on my birthday. It's a person reading with a cat on the sofa. That's perfect. And this deck has just brought me so much affirmation and joy. It's a really, really special one for me. I still reach for it fairly frequently, actually, and I do read with it, though it's been in my collection for quite a number of years now. I'm really glad to have it. So this one is definitely sentimental as well, and that is Thea's Tarot by Ruth West. The last tarot deck in my collection, and then I have an oracle deck I have in this pouch, and we know who has created this beautiful pouch. And this deck is the Tarot of the Magical Forest, and this deck has been Kelly Bear modified, trimmed, and edged in this great green tones. And this deck is sentimental to me because this deck is really the deck that started my journey on YouTube. I had been a tarot YouTube lurker, an occasional commenter, and I had thought about starting a channel and talked myself out of it, telling myself that I didn't have anything particularly interesting to add. And I won this deck in a giveaway on Kelly's channel. And I don't remember now if it was maybe a channel anniversary giveaway or something like this, but I won the deck and Kelly sent it to me, and there were some other goodies, including the pouch that came in the giveaway prize. And it was this little nudge to just go on and make a channel so that I could share my prize and say thank you properly here on YouTube. And I haven't won very many things, just kind of in general, like draws and raffles and things. Like I don't think of myself as particularly lucky in those kind of giveaway type of scenarios. It's certainly the first thing I ever won that had anything to do with tarot or anything like that. So this deck I kind of credit for giving me a nudge to start my YouTube channel. And so for that, I'm very grateful and I'm so happy. And this deck, as a Kelly Bear original modified style, is also, a unique deck in that sense as well. So this one is very much a sentimental deck for me, the Tarot of the Magical Forest. The last one that I will share is the Oracle deck. And this is another first, and that's why it's sentimental. I wasn't sure about Oracle decks when I first was really studying tarot. I wasn't sure what to think of them, wasn't sure what to do with them. But this deck, the Earthbound Oracle, which is by Andrew Liam Swartz of Skull Garden, really the style spoke to me. And I wasn't necessarily particularly sure what I was going to do with this. But when I finally decided this Oracle deck thing, I might like to give it a try, this is the one that I went for. And I bought this deck in 2016 as well. So, the year I bought my first indie tarot deck, I also bought this. And it was actually over 2 full calendar years before I ever bought a second Oracle deck. I just had this one. And I only worked with this one. And, of course I was looking around at other Oracle decks and learning more about Oracle decks as a kind of phenomena or a kind of type of deck. But I so liked this one, and none of the others that I saw really called to me in exactly the same way, that I just stuck with this one. From 2016 until well into 2018, this was my Oracle collection, and that was it. And now I love reading with Oracle, and I've got a better sense of what I like. And I would say that I read with Oracle almost as much as I read with tarot. I like reading with Oracle on its own, or in combination with tarot. And so this deck is sentimental because it started all of that for me. And that's the Earthbound Oracle by Skull Garden as my last sentimental deck. So thank you to James Feeney for starting this tag. It's been fun to make a quick VR, and I've enjoyed seeing other folks' sentimental decks as well. If you have a particular deck in your collection that is a real sentimental one for you, please do tell me about it below in the comments. I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.